You are listening to Unfuck Your Mind with the real, raw, colorful, authentic, empowering, control profanity-loving human Zach Lyotis, soul activator, master key holder, and intergalactic elder. Zach loves to find lessons in adversity to advocate humanity one listener at a time. She also enjoys having fun along the way. Check her out at zachlyotis.com to see what she's up to. But for now, let's pass it off to Zach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfuck Your Mind. I'm your host, Zach Lyotis. And in today's podcast, I have Chris Blackwell. Chris is the creator and alchemist of Harmonic Elixirs. Since his late teens, Chris has had a keen interest in all things spiritual and has spent much time with various masters during his years in India. A gifted intuitive reader, remedial massage therapist, and a soul-centered musician. Chris has a deep passion for sharing his multifaceted gifts to facilitate shifts in people's lives. He has been working with sound and frequency healing modalities for 15 years, including essential oils for the past 10 years. He does powerful healing sessions during vibrational alignment techniques, a process he personally developed which brings healing energy to the entire field, including the cells of the body, restoring people to a new level of ease and joy. Chris also enjoys devotional practice of Vedic chanting. Hello, Chris, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I was going to say, that sounds good. Can I book a session?
Yeah.
He also does this. He also does that.
Yeah, I know. It's so beautiful when you hear someone reading your bio and you're like,
yeah, exactly. No, thanks so much for having me. I just love sharing this stuff, and I love the co-creation and connecting with like-minded people. So yeah, I just love it.
Yeah, this is amazing. And I'm so happy that, like I said to you earlier, it's just one of those things that the universe keeps on pushing me forward. So I'm so happy when it comes to shining men in this light of nurturing and caring and energy and spirituality and healing, because it's such a topic that many don't really want to talk about, especially men. There's so many old wounds that come up, traumas that come up. So, you know, when this whole Me Too movement happened last year, my heart hurt because I understand the Me Too movement. I've been down that road. I cried for myself, but I really cried for the masculine energy out there, because I felt like some men have gone through that same thing and they didn't have anyone to talk to. And then for them growing up, they were always taught you have to be strong. You know, you have to hold your tears in. You can't do this and you can't do this, as much as women have. But I find like men were being silenced, and this is why Awakened Men Mondays came to light, so that we could bring this amalgamation and intertwine the energies of divine masculine and feminine, because we both hold those two energies inside of our bodies. So this is how this all came about, because it's something that is so beautiful. But I want to go back to your teenage years, because I constantly think of my teenage years and the energy work and stuff like that, and I had no idea what I was doing back in my teens.
Yeah.
No one spoke about it. My family, my parents thought it was the devil talking to me, considering we were friends, right?
Wow,
we went to church every week. I went to Sunday school, and no one ever talked about the spirit, spirituality, how we connect with our guides and angels and this. And here you are in your late teens having this interest and working with various masters. Bring us back to then.
Okay. Yeah. So I think from a very young age, I was very sensitive. I didn't necessarily know about the word intuition in my young teens or anything like that, but I sort of would pick up on energy fields and people around me and all that kind of thing. And then in my late teens, or right through my teens, I experienced a mixture of a really good childhood and also with an intense amount of anxiety. You know, social anxiety, just anxiety about what's life all about. I wanted to know the meaning of life, or the meaning or the essence of who I was, and other people seemed to be only interested in clothes. And I absolutely love clothes, but I was kind of like, what's wrong? You know, what's wrong with me? It kind of became like oh shit, you know, I don't fit in here, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how far to go back, but in the process, let's go to here. So we went through a whole lot of stuff with our family when I was about 18. My sister attempted suicide. She's okay. She's alive. I was going through all this anxiety around what's life all about? Why don't I fit in? Why do I feel different? Blah, blah, blah. I had a major panic attack. I was shaking. I was crying. I was staying with my uncle and aunt. They were looking after me for a period of time, and they had a spiritual teacher in India. Now, that night, after I'd had that huge panic attack, and my uncle had to give me a Valium or something equivalent, that master came in my dream, and there was this incredible sense of love. And the next morning, they said to me, I hadn't told them about the dream, we want to pay for you and take you to see this particular teacher. And so that was kind of like all that burning angst of what's the meaning of life, accompanied with the intense anxiety, so suffering plus the desire for the search for, there must be something in here which is free, which is not suffering, led me to that. And it was like, it's like I believe that the master, the teacher, the co-creations, the synchronicities, they just come along at the time. It's like we call them in because we're ready. It's like, well, I guess the teacher calls you when you're ready, you call the teacher when you're ready, however it works, but it's like there's a meeting at the perfect time. So that kind of began the path of seeing the spiritual teachers, and it went along from there. But it was fueled by intense mental suffering and that really deep desire for, I always knew that there's something beautiful and unique about being a human being, that there's an incredible potential inside a human being for a young age. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there was this potential freedom within to be found. And so it was that combination of suffering and that led me to that. And then, there's a lot more after that, but
isn't that really interesting that we have to go through mental disruption in order to find? Because I went through the same thing as well. And every powerful healer I've spoken to has all gone through mental disruption or some sort of, something on a physical realm, but mostly in a mindset realm, like that mentality of not feeling good, the curiosity coming up and all that stuff. But the beautiful part in that whole story is that you had an aunt and an uncle that had a spiritual teacher that could guide you the right way. Yeah,
it was just, beautiful. Like looking back now, it was absolute perfection, the whole thing. But at the time, it was like certain parts of it were, as I said, I had a kind of really good upbringing on the one hand, and I was a happy child. And then it was like kind of mixed with this angst. But that I can see that even the angst was perfect. And now even in the work that I do is basically helping people to unlock the trauma or the contracted energy that they're holding on to. So all that intense suffering, I've had to use certain tools, prayer, chants, download different techniques to unlock it in myself. So therefore it's kind of an aid when I'm working with someone else who has, everyone's got some sort of trauma they may be holding on to.
Absolutely.
But it's become an aid in actually the work that I do, but I didn't necessarily see it like that at the time.
Yes, I know you don't see it at all. You don't see depression at all like that at the time, but then it says, well, you've been through it 9 times. I'm sure you could teach someone how to get through it,
At the time, it was just like, go away, piss off. Like, this is like hell. Why do I have to go through this? But by the same token, there was always I always felt some background sense of presence, which became more pronounced. And it was like hanging on to that, I call it the I am, the sense of being. There was always something that was untouched all the way through it and is to this day, and it was like just hanging on to that, even when there was all that angst
that faith, holding on to that faith. I totally get that, because the only thing I had while going through depression was faith. And I remember driving and here I am going through depression. I'm crying and my life's falling apart, and I'm losing people in my life, I'm losing money in my life, I'm losing myself in my life, and all these things. And I said, God, I don't know, I don't think I'm listening. I don't know if I'm listening, because everything seems to be coming that I'm asking for, but it keeps on bringing me into a worse situation. And, I'll never forget driving. I was driving about 10 minutes north from where I live, and I hear a spirit saying to me, you have faith like a bowling ball. And I was like, like a bowling ball. And I said, is that the 8 pound, the 10 pound? Like what poundage? And they said, but you also have a sense of humor because you're so confused at what we're trying to tell you. And it was so funny because the bowling ball, I kept on, is it the 8 or the 10 pound bowling ball? And it was like that amount of heaviness, faith, that even though I was going through the trauma and the suffering at that time, you know, I'd always wake up every morning and say, thank you, God, let's see if we could get out of this today. And 2.5 years later, later, I finally got out of it. So I totally get it. But let's go back here to your beginning days. And you did have a great childhood, and you met this spiritual teacher back in India that you've been with him. So how long were you studying with him in India for?
The first time I went to see him was for a month. And I have respect for all different teachers. I guess this particular teacher was kind of my heart teacher, and he's still sort of, I think every day he's been with me in the background. I've felt the presence, you know. So, but physically I went first time a month, and the second time was about 4 years later. I went for a year, and I didn't stay the whole time with him, but I was a year in India and about 3 months with him. And then again, I came for a year and spent about 3 or 4 months at the ashram over there. So, yeah.
Amazing. So what are some modalities that you learned about yourself, you know, in those, I guess you're in 20s now, you're in your 20s. I went through cancer in my 20s. So it's
wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you learn in your 20s? Because 20s are one of the hardest decades to deal with, I find.
Yeah. I don't really necessarily want to go back to the 20s. But no, there were good times. There were good times, but what did I learn in my 20s? I started studying astrology in my 20s. I became very interested in different forms of vibrational healing in my 20s. I started doing meditation, my own meditation practice, or the first of different meditation practices in my 20s. And what else did I do? I think that's when I studied remedial massage, was in my late 20s, in between trips to India and back. This was all, you know, and whatever else. But yeah, I really started connecting to different teachers and different teachings, and also chanting. Like, I was exposed very much to chanting, which I still use, and obviously I'm a sound healer, so chanting is still a big part of my own practice and my own day. But I think, yeah, the introduction to the combination of meditation and chanting were definitely two. And I studied Reiki, as I said, astrology, and a whole lot of other things. But yeah, definitely the connection with sound was born. I was already a singer and everything, but in terms of actually devotional chanting or specific ancient syllables, which created a change in the nervous system, in the whole, you know, in your well-being and everything, I was exposed to that. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about sound therapy, because I love sound therapy. I think everyone should use some sort of sound therapy. We are made up of 70% water, so when we create sound within that water, magical things happen.
Absolutely.
So for those that don't know about sound therapy, and I'm gonna crack up a joke about this one, because I was watching Netflix yesterday, and I was watching David Letterman. My guest doesn't need an introduction, and Kanye West is on there. And I'm sure you know who Kanye West is.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about how he was a musician for so many years, but didn't realize that there are different sounds and tones that bring healing to your body and mind. And I thought, well, look at that, Kanye. So now he's coming up with different music with these different tones so that people could heal through the music and through the words. So let's talk about that, because a lot of people, I don't think, know what sound healing is. I mean, there is those that will know and those that don't know it, but give us a brief introduction about all that fun stuff that we do, that you do.
Okay. So like you said, the body is 60% or I don't know, 60%, 80% water, different articles, but it's a lot of water.
Yeah, a lot of water.
And as I'm sure you know, but some of the listeners may or may not, there's been a lot of studies on the effect of what we say and different sounds on water molecules. So they know that the effect of saying positive things to water molecules, I think it's Dr. Emoto was one of the main people to study that, affects the actual geometry of the water molecule. So it becomes very distorted when there's certain sounds played, say heavy metal music. Not that there's anything wrong with heavy metal music, but it's just how it is. And when there's certain pieces, classical pieces, or certain types of Indian music that have a different tonal quality, the water structure becomes, you know, like a geometric shape or whatever, but it becomes something nice. So the effect, and we all know how we feel when we listen to different types of music. Everyone responds fairly similarly to music which is calming. You know, everyone responds, their body, your nervous system responds to music which is really fiery and uplifting. You may or may not like the particular music, but the nervous system will respond quite similarly. So I discovered that, as I said, I started by doing music, and obviously I felt the effect of that. But then I started spontaneously using sound when I was studying remedial massage, and was doing a swap with a friend and started using sound, and they said, oh, I feel better after that. And then someone said, oh, my digestion was better after that. So at the start I was just playing with it, but I already kind of intuitively knew the effect of sound, but to see the actual effect of, wow, this is actually having an effect on people's emotions. And the way that I see it is that when someone is experiencing a particular emotion, depression, frustration, anger, whatever, and we've all had these emotions and have different emotions during the day, these actually, for me, create, in my experience, a particular sound or frequency. So a little bit like when you have an engine in a car and the engine is having trouble starting, well, that could be the equivalent of a negative emotion. And then the mechanic comes along, fixes the car, and then it goes, so the sound might be, and that's the sound that I hear in people's physical body when something is out of whack, either physically or emotionally. And then what we do is I will take, well, I don't do it, it just kind of happens, but the sound will kind of go and meet that particular frequency of sound in the person's body. So and then I'll go and bring the sound in, and then we'll lift it up, and so that eventually it's purring like, so the sound goes in and it restores, a little bit like a tuning fork. Like if the body's a tuning fork and I'm a tuning fork, and it's like we're resonating the body to a new frequency. So the frequency of joy, ease, peace, alignment, whatever those frequencies are, those natural frequencies that are our true state, we're bringing it back to its natural state of homeostasis.
Yeah. And what are some amazing things that you've seen done after sound healing? Because I know that when I do sound healing with my clients, and because you are the vessel and you're the messenger, as I call it, sometimes I tell my clients, you have to tell me what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm the middle person. Like, I'm the voice of reason here. But what are some great results that you've seen with people that have gone through not just one sound therapy session, because you need a lot more than just that one. And this is one thing I want to say to people out there, that when you're doing sound therapy, do a series of sessions.
Absolutely.
Because stagnation happens really quick. As much as we're moving things and moving things, there's a lot of old stuff in our body. So say for a series of sound therapy sessions with you, what are some great benefits that you've seen come out of people?
Well, one of the ones that I had, I'll tell you one that happened in one session, and then I'll go into the ones that have happened in a series. But this lady didn't tell me till a year later, but she had the session. She told me a year later that, this doesn't sound good, but she had a clearing, and she said her whole life fell apart after the session. Now, that's not normally the case, but in this case it was. But she knew it was right. She knew there was a whole lot of things not working. And then afterwards, everything started flowing, coming into alignment for her really big. So it was like she had a clearing, and then things came back. But she told me that her chronic fatigue lifted after the session, but she didn't tell me till a year later. So I was like, oh, okay. Now, I didn't do the session for chronic fatigue. She didn't even tell me she had chronic fatigue. But obviously the emotional issues that we dealt with, because I do a lot of clearing as well around that, and the sound actually helped her to release the fatigue that was, or the condition that was holding the fatigue in place. So that was one. Ongoingly, I've seen the effects. I've worked with, for example, I had a dementia patient who I worked with ongoingly every week, and I just noticed the effects as I would work with him every week, that he would start to say more, to feel brighter, to feel more connected, that it was like he was sort of coming back online. Other ones, people have come after, you know, big breakups, big things like that, or feeling disconnected from their power and their creativity, and they've come and had a series of sessions, and you can just see the change after each session, and then another layer, and then another layer. And it's like they've come back on board. They've got their life back. They've got their life force back. They've got their passion back. Or they may be, I work a lot also with money clearings, because money is about receiving, and often people have stuff around receiving and money. So often I'll clear stuff around the sexual energy, the sacral chakra, with the sound, get the energy flowing again. And then, you know, people will have all of a sudden, you know, their business take off, or this take off. Or one lady had a session and said, you know, she had more business in a week than she normally does in 2 months after the session, because we're just clearing the channels that we've built up by our beliefs, by our limiting beliefs. And as you would know from your work, and then once that's cleared, then, you know, it's like the energy flows naturally, and they're allowing the life force in. Like Abraham Hicks says, you know, we pinch ourselves off from the life force. It's just like once we stop doing that, then the life energy naturally flows again. So
yeah,
does that help?
Yeah, that's beautiful, because a lot of people don't realize that. But even though I was a nanny years ago, I had many different things, and people used to come to the house, and I used to leave the kids hitting the pots and pans like they're going crazy. It never used to bother me, and people used to be like, "Doesn't that drive you crazy?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "How does it drive you crazy?" I'm like, because I think of the kids. It actually is actually building up their creativity to see how they could create sounds and what they could do and this and that, like different sounds with a spoon, or if it's a metal spoon. So I said, no, it doesn't drive me crazy, but it drives me crazy that they take the whole cupboard out, like trying to be creative. It was interesting how I brought that aspect up as a nanny without even realizing the whole sound therapy thing. I looked at the creative aspect because, you know, when I went to school for an early childhood education, they talk about the kids will take the pots out of there. But then I was like, well, the kids take out the pots out of there. Parents actually do it to get the kid to do something else, but they're not realizing it's actually helping their creative juices as they're hitting things. So it's remarkable what music does for us. And I wish a lot more people realize that music is life. And if you're feeling in that place of downness, even clapping your hands could change something, right?
Absolutely.
Like anything sound-wise could help. But I know where you're coming from. So what kind of instruments do you use for your sound therapy?
Look, I do use things like crystal bowls and, you know, shakers, Tibetan bowls. I play keyboard, so occasionally I'll use that. But primarily I use a combination of voice, and then I do clearings. I do a lot of clearing statements with people, so I tend to combine voice with the clearing work that I do. So it's a combination, but yeah, I use a mixture, but primarily just tones with the voice.
So let's talk about Vedic chanting, because I've done that, and I went to an ashram for my 40th birthday, and I'll never I didn't go in there with the greatest of it. Well, I went in there with great intention, but I kind of got very hungover. And I spent 3 days in an ashram, and at one point I was still very hungover, and they started chanting. And in this chant, I started laughing. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And the person that was running the chant just looked at me like, "Why are you here?" And I did it. You know, I was doing it, but I was laughing through. I just found joy out of it. But then when I got serious into it, you know, for the next couple of days and just chanting and chanting and chanting, something changed inside of me. I can't even express what it was, how it was, when it happened, how it happened. Because when we left that ashram, we're like, thank God we're out of there. But let me tell you, the next 3-4 days when I came home, I was still chanting in my house. I couldn't stop. I called my friends. I'm like, do you guys feel the same way? And they said, we feel like something's missing from life.
Mm.
And I said, start
Absolutely.
chanting then if that's the case. Like I'm still chanting. I'm still going around my house and chanting. And I found it to be such a magical practice, even humming or making sound or anything like that, because that also is sound. So for people that don't know, that also is sound. So talk to us a little bit about your practice of Vedic chanting.
Yeah. Okay. So okay, there's all different things, but one of the main things at the moment I have as one of my teachers, a beautiful Balinese teacher called Ratu Bagus, who teaches a practice called bioenergy shaking, which wakes up the electric system in the body, wakes up the soul, he says. Now, while we're doing that practice, we chant, you may have heard of the Gayatri mantra.
I don't remember any of the names.
That's okay. That's okay. So I chant, so as part of that practice, I chant something called the Gayatri mantra. Maybe I can just share it for you quickly.
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah. So, okay. So basically the Gayatri mantra is an ancient mantra. It's connected with many, many masters. So and it's considered to be the mother of all mantras. And basically the essence of it is I wake up, what's the words? The mantra helps you to sharpen your intellect so that you may focus on the divine within. So it's connected with the energy of the sun and waking up the divine within. So I'll just I'll chant it 3 times and then we'll just keep talking or something. Okay. Yeah. Om Bhurvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhago Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Om Bhurvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhago Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Om Bhurvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhago Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Ooh.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. Very powerful.
Yeah. Now, if you guys didn't feel anything on that, rewind it and go back and get out of your head and out of your way and really listen to that. Wow.
Yeah. So it's just, and it works on every part of that chant. The syllables in that chant work on, there are 24 core syllables and they work on every part of the human system. So they balance the whole of the human system. So that's the powerful thing about sound. And people think, even with the sound Om, people go, oh, it's just a nice sound, or it's something that hippies wear on t-shirts, or, you know, and it is a nice sound and it is that. But to me, it's actually the core, you know, if you hear the sound, it's a core vibration in the fabric of the universe. And you see Om, Amen in the Christian faith, Amen in the Muslim faith, and Shalom. So you have this vibration. So that's no coincidence that 4 different religions have come up with that. And that's the way I see it, that behind everything, I get so excited when I talk about this, behind everything, there's this hum of existence, this fabric, this essential hum or beingness behind everything. And in that is everything everyone wants: joy, peace, aliveness, connection, you know? The
one word that keeps on coming up as you're speaking, it's like everybody's looking for that oneness.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly like you're saying about 4 different religions holding that same tune. And it's so funny because, you know, when you think of religion, you think of separation, but they don't realize that subconsciously it's actually a unification. It's just the human mind that separates, right? And that's what it comes down to. But when you were chanting that, I want to tell you my experience.
Yeah, go for
it. It was really interesting because I told you before the show that I'm going through a lot of detoxing right now. I'm doing a lot of work with my body and stuff like that. And I feel so ungrounded and out of alignment. So as you're chanting that, I just saw things coming off of my third eye, and then things just coming off of my digestive area, so my intestinal area, and then coming out of my heart. And it's
wow.
coming out of my heart. And it was just a white light. It was like just a white light all around me. But it's Beautiful. Like I felt it cleansing the heart and cleansing the third eye as you're going. I thought to myself, as you're chanting, I was like, wow, he's got such a beautiful tone. I could listen to that on repeat.
I'll send you one.
Yeah. There you go. It was so beautiful. I do listen to a lot of chants. I do listen to a lot of chants, and I find when I can't chant for the life of me. I try. It's funny when I try to do it, but when I just push play on a chant, I feel so liberated, and it doesn't happen right away.
Yeah.
Like depending on what you're going through, and this is what I want to tell people, depending on what you're going through in your life, it may take a couple of minutes to get that old stagnation moving in order.
Absolutely. And it's like we, in terms of mantra and chants, most of the time the mantra of the mind is there's a problem with me, there's a problem with my life, there's a problem. So in a sense, when we're doing that, we're saying a mantra. So this is basically these particular frequencies, and each particular mantra chant has a different frequency and a different purpose, in the same way that each teacher brings a different message or quality. They retrain or regroove. So it's like one, while you're chanting, you don't have the time and energy to think about your problems because you have to focus on the chant. And two, the actual syllables of the chant repattern the brain and the nervous system. So you're getting a win on both accounts, because it's like, one, you're focusing on something else, and two, the actual power of the chant itself. So
it's beautiful. I listened to Lakshmi, sorry. She said that's not say my name. I listen to Lakshmi chanting sometimes towards me, and a few other deities that I listen to, and it's like a 3-hour chant, and I just could sit there and bliss out. I open my eyes, I'm just like, where am I? Bring me back home, because you can't. For me, sometimes I do function, but it's hard to function at that state of bliss sometimes, where I'm just so open and so this and so that. So it's like bring everything together for me, because I do live out of my body a lot, and I do enjoy the other side.
Dimensions.
That's not really the human side, but I had spirit tell me at one point that I had to stop doing a lot of that stuff, because I couldn't stay grounded enough. So it was rather interesting. So I went to different chants and different mantras and different everything to find my grounding, to be able to move forward. So it's so beautiful. And I, like I said earlier, and like how you're saying, just walking around and humming changes things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so true. It's like, and interesting, the sound just, and you can feel where different sounds resonate in the body, actually balances the midbrain. So the corpus callosum, or whatever it's called, that whole area of the midbrain, it actually brings, wakes that area up and balances that. So just, we think we're just innocently going, but it's doing that. And you mentioned clapping before. Well, clapping balances stuff between the right and the left brain, and it switches on the system, And I even get people sometimes in workshops or one-on-ones to clap, just to sort of wake the system up, So, and I was thinking too, something you said before about laughter and how you laugh during the chant. Well, it's like this Balinese teacher that I connect with, one of his big things, you'd love him. He's just so beautiful and humble, but super powerful. And his big thing is laughter is medicine, and, he's got a saying, if you don't have time for laughter, what else do you have time for? So it's like, and, that actual energy brings endorphins into the body, brings healing into the body. So And I remember when I was going through a really low patch last year, I went through a very intense patch, which again was a grace in disguise. And at one point I was praying before a statue in a temple, and I was even sort of partly pissed off, going, oh, I can't be, why am I doing this? I'm only doing this because I'm desperate, but please help me anyway, you know. And all of a sudden I saw the words written right over the statue: laughter, 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 laughter. And I was, in my mind at the time, was like, well, how the bloody hell is laughter going to help? You know? And, like, you know, I've got serious bloody problems here. You know, like I feel like I'm, you know, like this far away from a bloody mental institution, and, you know, going mad, and you're telling me laughter. And anyway, and then I sort of forgot about it, called a friend 5 minutes later, and then I just had this like spontaneous, uncontrollable laugh for 10 minutes. And it was like, all the tension I was holding in my sacral chakra and my solar plexus just woke up, because the laughter ripples through those chakras and just opens up, as you would know, the whole system. So some of these things which seem like, oh, it's just laughter, or oh, it's just chanting, they can actually be a lot more powerful than we think.
Yeah, because they're simple.
Yeah.
Because it's simple. Everyone thinks that things need to be complicated or hard to do, but you don't realize that the universe uses simple, practical techniques for us to live our best life ever. And that's one thing that Spirit has always said to me. It's humans that make life complicated. Life is really simple. Yeah, exactly. You know? Exactly. And I found a shirt once, I'd wear it to the hair salon, and say, I'm simple, it's complicated. And how do you,
I like that.
Yeah. How do you want your hair done today, Zach? And I'd say, whatever looks good on me. And they're like, that easy? You have the colors of a rainbow, and you have the skill of a hairstylist. Just do whatever comes to you. And you know, hairstylists don't get that. And I still do it today, where they're like, what do we do with your hair? And I'm like, you know?
Do what you want. You got the colors of a rainbow, sister. Do what you like.
Do what you like. And it's the real simplicity of things that people don't have that time to spend in simplicity, because it's more interesting to stay complicated and try to figure it out.
Exactly. But it's so true. And, you know, like, oh God, I feel like we could chat for 3 hours here, but just scratching the surface of stuff it's like, you know, I had a period about 2 years ago where all I was told was intuitively, internally, I did little bits and pieces of work, and the rest of the time I was taught, lay low, go for a walk, drink a chai, have fun, meditate, lie on your bed, blah, blah, blah. And I did this. My mind was like, what the hell? I want to get on with things. I want to do things. But this was the guidance. And I was lucky enough that I trusted that enough to do it. Lay low, sit down, meditate, connect with your body. And I was like, oh, how bloody boring. You know, this is the mind, you know, oh God, this is the last thing I want to do. I want to run a marathon. I want to do this. I want to get my business going. And so, but anyway, I did this, and that's really the more and more I relaxed into it, all the resistance that I had been holding started to dissipate. And I wasn't consciously thinking I'm releasing resistance here or anything, but all the resistance I'd been holding on to by creating no space and trying too hard and pushing and struggling. And then one night out of that, I had the intuition I'd worked with essential oils for ages, to start blending my own essential oils. Now, for the next month, basically a flood of just constant energy to create new blends, which has now become one part of my business, just came through. Now, it wouldn't have come through, and it was just pure play and joy and fun. I wasn't trying to sell it to the world. I wasn't trying to fix the world. I was just playing. And that wouldn't have come had I not honored that downtime that I was guided to, that sit, meditate, feel, connect. Now, at the moment, I'm more busy, I'm more out there, but that's what's natural at the moment. So I think there's something about really trusting where you're at, and you need to open a space to get something new. If you just keep filling it with the old beliefs and crap and stuff, there's no space for something to actually drop in. So that's a lot of what I'm about and what I help others with.
Yeah, there's a new paradigm, a new energy in town right now that you know, the old is just not working. It's outdated. It's not programmed inside of you anymore. You could, and I'm speaking by experience. I'm on a spiritual sabbatical. It feels like it for the last 6 months. It's killing me. And you know, now I'm at that stage. Even I created a lot of stuff in the 6 months. They had me in a creation mode. But now the last couple of weeks, it was more about a month now. It's now, okay, let's get your health in order now. You've done so much. You're at the finishing end of, you know, creating this beautiful business for yourself, the foundational work. Let's get your body going, because the next step that you're in, that new energy that now you finally let go of the old, and now we're coming into that new energy. It's about to blow up. And if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to make it with the big boy.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. And you know, I tried to push a while back when I was not in a space to be doing it, and I don't advise pushing at all. But I tried to push, and you know, I ended up with chronic exhaustion, panic attacks about a year ago, because I was trying to push, and that's the old energy. Pushing, trying, forcing is the old energy. Incredible focus is different. You know, it seems like a similar energy, incredible focus and pushing, but incredible focus can be very still, but it's very powerful. Pushing is that psychological sense of, I've got to make this happen and not use my intuition and just force it into place. And you know, it nearly made me sick. And I just got such a strong thing. You have to look after your body. You're not going to have a business. You're not going to have health. You're not going to have anything, you know, from that energy. And I've been unlucky enough that some people seem to be able to get away with having a business out of the pushing energy. I've got something where I just can't do that. I physically cannot do that. It doesn't work. The clients don't book if I come from that energy. Nothing happens. So it has to be out of this place of joy and allowing. And then the miracles that happen, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Wow, we could talk forever. I could feel this.
Yeah, I know.
I have another 10,000 questions lined up in the back of my head.
I'm more than happy to come back. I love doing this stuff.
You are more than welcome to come back. Yes, because there's just so much to talk about, especially when it comes to resistance and doubt and, you know, releasing or even to let go, resistance, all the same to me. With the emotion, I help a lot of people with emotional blocks and traumas and right, because we all have emotional blocks. And you know, this is the biggest message, and I've heard this so many times coming in from spirit, is like, it doesn't matter what your financial bracket is, doesn't matter what your race, doesn't matter what your religion, doesn't matter what your marital status is. Emotional blocks, which is fear, doubt, resentment, anger, guilt, betrayal, they show up anytime for anyone. There is no resistance to who it goes to. It goes to all those that are open to receiving it. And it's so interesting, because you think the millionaire doesn't have a problem, right? Because he's a millionaire. Why would he have a problem? He's got $1 million. There's no problem. He's a millionaire. But when I was a flight attendant back in the day, I used to deal with a lot of athletes. And I remember I was hanging out with a baseball player, and we were just talking and laughing and this and that. And he says to me, I have the worst anxiety. And I said, what? And he goes, I am so depressed. And this, like, he was, and I looked at him, I said, dude, how can you be depressed with so much money in your account? Like, are you kidding me? He goes, what does it have to do with my happiness? And I said, are you kidding me? Let me show you how happy I could be with your money. And he goes, you know, like, and it's so true. Like, after that conversation, he opened up my perception to so many different things. And I thought, wow, you know, and it was, he's like, I have money, but you know what? My girlfriend's not with me. My family's not with me. I live in a hotel room. I'm by myself. Yeah, I got the guys to hang out with, but I live by myself and all this stuff. And I thought, you can't put money on that. You just can't put money on that.
Exactly.
So
true.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anything else that you could give us? Any more nuggets of wisdom, or one piece of, because we could go on forever, but one piece of wisdom that you could leave everyone with right
now? What's popping in is start telling a new story. Start telling a new story. Start very, very gently telling a new story. Don't start with the topic that gives you the most trouble and try to, you know, wrestle it to the ground, as Abraham Hicks would say. But start telling a new story. You know, for example, even this interview, like I've been having radio interviews and all sorts of things over the last few years. I would just say, people are starting to interview me about my work. I'm sharing my work with people. I would just say this to myself during the day, and just opening up, you know, what's the kindest thing that you could say to yourself? Usually we're looking for the least kind thing we can say to ourselves. I'm still not manifesting this. I'm still not doing this. This is like, what's the kindest thing you can say to yourself? You know, I love myself. Everything's working out. Things are getting better. Life is supporting me. And it starts off, it might seem like just superficial or in the head, but if you do it with feeling and you focus on the feeling of well-being and life supporting you, and you do that consistently, it can create miracles. If you combine that then with chanting and meditation, next level. But, you know, it really is powerful what we say to ourselves. The whole system listens to, you know, and one example that I can give is this. I don't know how long we've got, but this should only take a minute. If you focus on someone that you dislike or have issues with, and just focus on them for a second and feel, how does your body feel? So someone that you have an issue with, it may be stronger than that. You may feel like you hate this person. If you don't have that, then just someone that you have issues with, and feel, how does your body feel? Mm-hmm. Now, focus on somebody that you love, living, dead, that you absolutely love, and feel what happens to your body, your nervous system. For me, it's an instant deep breath and my whole body opens. So this is the same thing that's happening when we tell ourselves, I'm no good, I'm this, I'm that. And I know I've done that to absolute death, you know, like millions of negative thoughts, like just impossible. I've done it to the point where it's like almost like I can't continue doing it these days, you know, because I've done that. And it's been a kind of gift because I've got to see the destruction of the mind. Yes. And then work with it with people. But really, really be kind on yourself. What's the kindest thing I could do for myself today? What's the gift that I could give myself today? How easy could I be on myself today? How could I give myself a break today? Rather than, you need to do this, you know, it's a different energy. So that's probably my number one thing that's coming.
Yeah, and I love that. Yeah. I think the more kind we are to ourselves, the more kind we could just be to other people, and we don't take a lot of things personally. And it's
absolutely.
So yeah, and I find a lot of people, you know, I don't have a to-do list anymore. I have the finish list.
Oh, nice.
The to-do list just feels like, oh man, I gotta do this. But when I look at it as like to finish list, it's like, oh yeah, I finished this. And it's so interesting when we give ourselves that momentum and speak to ourselves and create this new story like you're talking about, because there is a new energy coming forward.
Yeah.
We need that new story, that new vibration. And, you know, things might take time to manifest because we hold on to so many patterns and programming from our past.
Yeah, and absolutely.
You know, a lot of people don't even realize that until we have this conversation, right? So I love that. Change your story, change your life, change your outcome, change your vibrational frequency, change what's going on inside of you, all just by changing your story.
Yeah, and the thing about changing your story is it's not just about changing your story. It's kind of like changing the story and getting the outcomes related to the story is one part of it. The other part of it is once you start being kind on yourself, you naturally come into alignment with the source that you are, which is the essence of kindness and well-being and love and everything. And so therefore you're not pinching yourself off from that energy, which you are when you're telling yourself negative things. Therefore the flow of energy is there. Therefore you've got your life force back. So it's not just, oh, I'm telling a new story, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that before. That is on the superficial level, one element of it. But it's actually, you come into alignment, you get your life force back, which was never lost. You just cut it off. So
yeah. I always say I'm having a conversation with my future self.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I have this conversation with my future self to see what I need to change in the present self to get to future self area. But this was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thanks so much, Zach. I've absolutely loved it. I appreciate it. And as a thank you, I'd like to offer you a free session online when you want. So I'll PM you about that as well. So thanks so much.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So everyone out there that feels connected to Chris, that's ready to do sound therapy, because really at the end of the day, sound vibration with what we are made of on the inside could change our lives drastically. I know I've been there. I've seen it with my own eyes with other people. I know Chris has seen it with his own eyes as he does his work with other people as well. close and from afar, as he just mentioned, he does work online. But if you feel aligned with Chris, all of his socials are going to be in the show notes below. So don't forget, change your story, change the feelings that you're working toward yourself, change the words that are coming to your mind and to your mouth about yourself, about others, about situations. Bring more higher vibrational frequencies to you and see how things are slowly going to change for you, or how drastically and rapidly they'll change for you. Until we connect again, have a great one, and we will see you next week at Awakened Mondays. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Unfuck Your Mind. Head over to iTunes and leave your 5-star review and comment to get Uprising the charts so we can get this incredible wisdom into more ears worldwide. In the show notes, you'll find all affiliate links to what we've mentioned in the podcast or products Zach loves to use. Until we connect again, unfuck 1% of your thoughts and watch how your life shifts.